to make sure that they can upgrade their infrastructure. We want to modernize our communities to keep all of our health and safety at the forefront. And so this is an important investment every year. We're excited to see it growing. It's also going to be paying for things like lead service line replacement. So again, not just good for the environment, but also great for public health.
So Staten Islander News is here today with Jessica Otney Mahar, Policy and Strategy Director for the Nature Conservancy, New York. Jessica Otney Mahar is the Nature Conservancy's New York Policy and Strategy Director. She leads TNC's New York policy team and oversees conservation programs across the state. Since joining TNC in 2007, Jessica and her team have successfully advocated for the enactment of dozens of laws and regulations, including the Climate Leadership and Community Protection Act, and helped secure billions in funding to protect and restore New York's natural resources and address global warming. She also currently serves on numerous nonprofit boards. So, good morning, Jessica. It's good to have you with us.
Good morning. Thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
So, kind of a little bit of background for our readers. Kind of when we started scheduling this interview, it was the budget had not been finalized yet. They were still in negotiations and talking about it and everything. So now we kind of have like a concrete what they've passed. So we're just going to kind of ask a little bit about what some of these things mean for New York. So it's like, there's a lot of numbers, a lot of budget and stuff, and can kind of make your eyes kind of cross a little bit. But so the first thing that I noticed on that was on the list was there's $425 million for the Environmental Protection Fund, which is a continuation of the historic funding level that was reached in the last state budget, with reductions to cornerstone programs and authorizations to transfer funds from another environmental program to cover those changes. So if you can talk about what that does and what that means for New York.
Sure. Thanks. So the Environmental Protection Fund has been around since 1993. It's one of the state's primary sources of funding for environmental projects. What does that mean? Creating new state parks, helping localities, including in New York City, create parks and natural areas, supporting clean water funding, paying for things like recycling. If you get a blue box or a recycling bin that you put out at the end of your driveway once a week, it supports things like that. So it's a really interesting and diverse source of funding for programs that protect clean air, clean water, and our quality of life by providing access to nature. Over the years, this has grown to $425 million a year. So that's wonderful. It's lots of money that can be provided to local governments, not-for-profit organizations, and others to do these great things. So we're excited that the Environmental Protection Fund was maintained with historic levels of funding, $425 million. That's good news for New Yorkers. But what we saw happen in the budget this year was a little bit of financial shenanigans where they removed funding from two big important programs in the Environmental Protection Fund, state land conservation and state land stewardship. So this is money that's used to pay for natural areas to become public parks and trails. I think one on Staten Island is Mount Loretto. Local places people can go to recreate outdoors, and then also money to take care of those places. They removed $25 million from those two categories combined. And they used that to reallocated that within the fund to pay for other projects. A lot of them were small and local in nature. And they then paid for the other projects for state land and state land stewardship out of a different environmental fund called the Sustainable Future Program. So what we saw here was kind of a shell game where we were transferring money from one environmental fund to another. What we really need to see New York doing for the benefit of New Yorkers for clean water and clean air is to increase overall environmental funding. So going forward, that's something that we're going to be advocating for. Make sure that they correct that and they don't do that again.
Got it. Okay, that makes sense. So yeah, it always seems like there's the money is kind of like this thing that can just be moved around wherever and stuff. And it's
Yeah.
almost like it's in a computer, so it's not exactly as like, budgeting for like a person who just their bank account, things go in, things go out. It's a lot more complicated at
It
this
is
level.
complicated. So that's one of the things that we're trying to do as well with a lot of partners in a coalition called New Yorkers for Clean Water and Jobs. We want to make sure that we try and explain some of these things so that it's more clear to people, and also let people learn how they can get involved with speaking with the folks who represent them in Albany, so that they can be a voice in not only advocating for funding for conservation and clean air and water, but also to make sure that these programs have integrity and this kind of transfer doesn't happen again.
Oh, awesome. Um, okay, so the next thing was that there's $525 million for the Clean Water Infrastructure Act, which is actually an increase of $25 million from last year. How is that increase going to be beneficial, and is that a good amount for
Yeah.
that?
Yeah, I mean, look, this is an incredible source of money. It's $500 million a year now plus 25 million, which is great news. This is money that pays for things like clean drinking water lines, the pipes that bring clean drinking water to your house or your business or your school. It pays for sewer lines, so takes dirty water away from your house. We want those things to work. It pays for things like septic system upgrades, where we have people who aren't connected to sewers and have septic systems. A lot of times those cause pollution in our local waterways, our bays and harbors. So we want to clean those up. And so this is really important money for New Yorkers, and it's going right out directly into communities, including New York City, to make sure that they can upgrade their infrastructure. We want to modernize our communities to keep all of our health and safety at the forefront. And so this is an important investment every year. We're excited to see it growing. It's also going to be paying for things like lead service line replacement. So again, not just good for the environment, but also great for public health.
Nice. Okay. And then there was $90 million for New York Works capital funding for the Department of Environmental Conservation, which actually continues the previous funding level and actually gives you $24 million more. And
Mhm.
this is for local projects. So this is the capital funding something that's more like on a kind of like borough level, like a municipality level?
So these are statewide, and actually I'll get to the next bullet too. So there's funding in the state parks and the Department of Environmental Conservation Fund budget for capital projects. So these are projects that are investments in state facilities all across the state. So it's not specific to different boroughs, but it's to do things like upgrade dams so that they don't burst. It's to do things in state parks, like make sure people have safe and accessible trails or bathrooms. So these two pots of money, 90 million for Department of Environmental Conservation and 200 million for state parks, are really core funding to make sure that New Yorkers can safely get out and access all of our natural areas, from the ones that DEC takes care of, including places like the Adirondack Park and the Catskill Park, but also our world-class state park system all across New York, including in New York City. And then in both of those pots of money, there's additional funding for the $24 million in this case was for different dams around the state that need, specific work. There was 140 million in additional funding for projects, specific projects in different state parks that really need that attention. And then there was some for the commemoration of the 250th anniversary of America. So some cultural celebrations there as well too, which is exciting. But this is all core money that's focused at these agencies about getting New Yorkers out into nature and helping them access our incredible natural resources.
Awesome. And actually, one thing that I wanted to mention that our readers may be familiar with is we actually interviewed Richard Louv, who has been
Oh,
researching for decades
yeah.
about why you want to be outside, what the benefits are. And what he was telling me was when he first started, there were 5 studies. When he
Hmm.
first started, like 40 years ago, now there are thousands of studies that show that not only does access to nature and going outside in nature help with cognitive function, it helps them to learn better, it reduces ADD, it does so many different things. So if anyone wants to know, well, why is this important? Why do we care about this? There's a big amount of science behind it at this point.
It's incredible. It's great you covered that. He's an amazing leader on that. And yeah, there are studies, including, the Nature Conservancy has been involved in studies in other parts of the country where they've shown that tree planting can not only reduce pollution in a community, but actually at a personal level, reduce things like inflammatory markers, which are signs for a higher incidence of cardiovascular disease, cancers. So there are real direct health benefits to not only getting out in nature, but just being near nature. There are other studies that show if you can see nature from your school classroom or your hospital room, you're learning better, you're healing better. And these are real facts backed by science. It's not just, environmental folks saying this because they think it's a nice look. So it's exciting that that body of science is maturing like it is.
Right, right. And there was also the last one was that there's significant changes to the Climate Leadership and Community Protection Act and the State Environmental Quality Review Act. Are these good changes, bad changes, neutral changes, or both?
Well, I'll start with the Climate Act. We're disappointed in the changes that were made to the Climate Act. While other states are reducing pollution and actually using clean energy to stabilize and lower energy bills for their residents, they're expanding clean energy. Our state leaders slowed down our progress by changing our landmark climate law that was passed in 2019. We need to get back on track as soon as we can. Now that these changes have been made, there are still really important long-term goals. Those remain unchanged. There are important dates coming up now in just a couple of years to move forward with regulations that will reduce pollution. And, we want to see a cap and invest program put in place. That's an economy-wide mechanism that will make polluters pay and fund the transition to clean energy and affordable energy. And so we don't want to postpone that future for New Yorkers. What we're seeing right now with energy and the costs are that our fossil fuel dependence is increasing our costs because of all of the volatility in the market. We're subject to all of this, the world events that are happening that are causing these increases. The more that we do to build clean energy, and build it here in New York, we can create jobs for New Yorkers, we clean up our air, and we lock in to prices that are not subject to all that volatility. So at this point, it's really important that we now move forward and implement the law that is newly on the books with the adoption of this budget. And I'll also just say, in addition to the changes, the state did continue $1 billion for something called the Sustainable Future Program. This is going to be paying for things that reduce air pollution, that, lower energy bills and make buildings more energy efficient, make transportation cleaner. So we want to make sure that we're investing in these things. And then eventually, as we implement that climate law, these things will be paid for by polluters. So that's also a good thing for New Yorkers' pocketbooks.
Right, right, right. Yeah, and we had also spoken with Doug Tallamy a couple of years back, who wrote Nature's Best Hope.
Mm,
And basically, one of the reasons I really liked that book and meeting with him was because it was kind of like a what you and I can do. If you
hmm
have a backyard, do you have a front porch? Do you have anywhere that you could plant something? You can contribute to ecological restoration, and it's really not as difficult as people believe.
Yeah.
Like if you plant an oak tree in your backyard, you will have so many birds and so many caterpillars and so many bees. And then if you put a blueberry bush next to it, oh my gosh, like forget it. You're just gonna have like an entertaining thing of wildlife in your backyard every day,
Yeah.
that it's spring and summer. But
Yeah.
you're also contributing to kind of reversing some of these ecological wastelands that
Yeah.
humans have created over time. And I also wanted to mention for our readers, because when this comes out, which is going to be next week, Groundswell will be available to watch on Prime Video, and I'm not sure if you have seen it yet.
No.
It is amazing. It is Woody Harrelson's third installment in the Kiss the Ground, Common Ground, and groundswell. Now, if you watch it backwards, you can be inspired instead of depressed.
Ah!
If you if you started with Kiss the Ground, you'd be like, oh my gosh, what are we gonna do? And then
Oh,
you get to groundswell and it's like, look at what they're doing. Oh my
yeah.
gosh. Like there's this place called Dune in India where it was a desert in 2013, a literal desert, and it's a forest today
Oh, that's
and
great.
it's producing avocados and coffee beans and some other like bananas, like totally unrelated things because they have it all working together in the whole new regenerative agriculture way that they do things, which is incredible how fast this stuff can fix, how fast the earth can fix itself is really just
Yeah.
astonishing.
It is astonishing, and that's hopeful. I mean, if we give it a chance, and it's not just the earth fixing itself, it's for us too. And I always tell people, the earth eventually is going to be fine. Humanity might not. And that's why this is so important for us. I think a lot about my daughter and future generations when I do this work. This is not just about, some big kind of global issue that seems far off, like climate change. It's about the air that we're breathing, the water that we're drinking, and giving ourselves a shot at having, a really great quality of life. And, we can build, build, build all we want, but the resources that we all depend on are what really underpin our ability to continue to prosper and survive on this planet. And so, look, this budget was a mixed bag for a lot of reasons. But there's good here. And what we need to be doing now going forward, and just like you were talking about the hope, is leaning into making these things work on the ground, making this clean water funding come into communities, making sure our climate bill is implemented so we have cleaner air, making sure the Environmental Protection Fund can pay for all of these projects in communities, not just because they're pretty or nice, but because they're the things that are protecting the natural resources that New Yorkers depend on for their economy, for our livelihoods, for our quality of life, for our health and safety. This was a long, difficult budget process. But I think coming out of it, we all have work to do, and there's some really exciting, good threads to pull here that we can use to make New York a healthier and safer place for everybody.
Absolutely. Yeah, and that was one of the also things that a lot of people have been talking about is a lot of the refugee crises are
Mm,
happening because those places didn't take care of their environments, because they caused desertification in their area, and then all the
mhm,
people had to leave because there's nowhere to grow food anymore. They couldn't grow
mhm.
food anymore, and a lot of it was because of all the chemicals
Yep,
that are used in agriculture, which we still use in a lot of places.
yep.
But as people show that you don't need them, maybe it'll actually start to transition towards something where we're not destroying things faster than we're repairing them. Because I guess that's kind of like the whole balance is like restoring it faster than you mess it up. What
Yeah.
do you think?
Yeah, and New York, look, we're an incredibly lucky place here in New York where we have abundant water. There are still places in New York that have droughts, but by and large, we're lucky. We have incredible natural resources, including in New York City. They just adopted the first urban forest plan for the city. So we have natural resources everywhere, including in our cities, but we know we can do better. We can take good care of these resources. We can expand these resources so that they are truly benefiting all New Yorkers. There's a lot of folks who don't have access to that. And we want to make sure that we're protecting these assets that we have for future generations. We want to do a lot of great work around the economy and development and making sure that, we're fueling that. And at the same time, again, these natural resources are the underpinning of what makes New York a high quality of life place to live. And so I think you're onto something there. That balance is really important.
So what I just wanted to kind of ask is, oh, first off, I did want to ask, is any of this kind of because of the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, are any of these things kind of like to mitigate some of the damage that that's either creating or expected to create for like the environment and the new regulations with the EPA and stuff like that?
I'm not sure. I don't think so directly, but as the federal government steps back from some of these issues, we really do need the state to continue to step up. And so, in this budget and beyond, it's going to be important that the governor and the state legislature continue their work to, address things like building out the clean energy economy, conserving clean water, making sure our natural resources are protected.
Fantastic. Is there anything else that you wanted to add to our conversation that maybe we didn't cover, or that's something like that you wanted to add?
No, I think we covered everything. Thank you.
Okay, awesome. So it was really great to meet with you, and
Yeah.
I hope you have a really good rest of your day.
Yeah, thanks for all your time.